Next up is a public hearing for proposed changes to fence and shed setback regulations, local law number 2. And each speaker who's in the room who wants to speak on this will be allowed up to 5 minutes on the podium. I take it that we've had a sign-in sheet. That's the fairest way to figure out who goes first, second, third.
Did people sign in?
Can you? I don't know.
No, because Carrera forgot to do that.
Oh, that's okay. Then you know what? Hey, you know what? We're flexible here. So what we're going to do is we'll just move right to left from my viewpoint, and then that's how we'll go in order for the people that are here to speak on the behalf of that. I am going to open the public hearing, and the gentleman here, are you here for that?
I am.
Go right on up to the podium.
Oh man, it's pressure. It's a long walk. I don't have a lot to say.
And we'd ask you to start with your name and your address, please.
My name is Chris Huber. We live at 752 North Brookway in Webster, obviously. I just want to say my wife and I just purchased our home this past year. Anybody knows what the housing market's like right now, it's an accomplishment. And lucky to live in Webster. We're hoping to put up a fence this year, but we ran into the current regulations. Wanted to put up a 6-foot fence, and it has to be 10 foot from all property lines. Problem is that, you know, cuts into our square footage pretty significantly. And so because of that, we're kind of left with the decision of whether it makes sense or not to even put up a fence in the first place. You know, but we've had some privacy concerns and things, and so it is really important to us. And so I guess all I really wanted to say is that I think it just comes down to, you know, trusting that people are going to still have the respect for both the town and their neighbors and the property, right? And you know, if we're going to put a fence closer than that, I think we just have to be able to take care of that property line and keep things, you know, up to snuff and make sure that things look well, look nice and aren't contributing to like declining property value or anything like that. But I think if that can be done, then I think it makes sense to do what all the other towns have done and remove that distance requirement or at least shorten it. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks. All right, so this is where I'm. Okay, well then I was going to say I can't tell who's saying it, but are you here?
I'm with him.
You're with him?
She doesn't want to.
You can skip it.
Okay, now we're coming across to the couple that's in the back. I assume you're a couple or you together?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry. And you're not here to talk to in the public hearing? You don't want to speak?
Well, I guess we could. Could we just talk from here?
You cannot. So.
Or I will. Well, it has to do with putting up a shed.
Well,
Can you hear me?
As Deputy Supervisor Cataldi had said, can you give your name and your address?
It's Margot and that's Steve. We're at 768 South Huckberry Way, Webster. And we've just moved in maybe 8 months ago. But our question is, can the shed go a little bit beyond the fence? And which is 10 feet, it has to be 10 feet, the fence. So we're just questioning how, do we have more room for that shed to start back there beyond the fence and become part of that? Or 5 feet back, using that property. That's just, we're wondering.
The property line be 5 feet is what's being proposed to change.
So it's just a shed question, that's all we
Josh, I mean, in the current structure, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure, yeah. So currently, sheds have to be 15 feet from the rear and side property lines.
Yes.
And fences have to be 10 feet. So I think your question is, can a fence be located outside of the fenced area?
Can the shed be outside?
Currently, no.
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 But is there some beginning of changing something on that, or is
So that's the purpose of tonight's public hearing. So the proposal is to change the setbacks for sheds to be able to be located 5 feet from any rear or side property line.
Okay.
And then a fence, which is currently required to be 10 feet off the property line, is proposed to be able to go right up to the property line.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I think from my angle, this gentleman here in the front, are you here for the public? No, okay. Les? Got a
Nope.
fence you want to talk about, shed?
Not today.
Nope.
Good evening. My name is Susan Carrera. I live at 546 Clem Road. My husband and I have lived here since 1976, and we currently have a 4-foot fence. And we've been struggling for a long time with our deer population, and I'm hoping that having a 6-foot fence would kind of deter some of the damage done to our property for flowers and things. I think that most of the houses in our area now are 1/4 acre lots. Mine happens to be one of the older lots that's a 1/2 acre lot, but it's still coming in at 10 feet from the property line. We're put up a 6-foot fence, really does encroach on, usability of the yard. And I think it's well over past time that this be addressed. I know in looking around the area, there are a number of fences that are higher than 4 feet. And people have, as it says in the brochure that was sent out, there are a lot of people that haven't bothered to get permits, have just put up the fences. And unless somebody complains, nothing's done. And I do have a question about when you go to sell your house, if you've put up a shed or a fence without getting the proper permits, are you going to be dinged for not getting the permits? And if that's something that that's going to be addressed, with these changes.
You most certainly can, Jess.
So yes, that issue has come up quite a bit. And yes, it does pose a problem for the home buyer. They kind of get stuck with trying to rectify the violation or the work done without a permit. So yes, we have seen that quite a bit when properties change hands and the bank requires a zoning letter of compliance. We see survey maps with sheds and fences that aren't compliant, and yes, it can often impact or delay the sale of the home, and then the new person that purchased the home is often responsible for bringing it into compliance.
Thanks. The gentleman next. From my angle, Perry, he was before you.
My name is David Menchik. I live at 416 Brookwood Drive with my daughter, and she's looking to put up a fence at the rear of the property line, which is very close to, I think it's called Woodland Trail. And the houses on Woodland Trail are much closer to the front of the property line. So she wants to put a fence up for 2 reasons. One is a property as a privacy fence so that we're not looking right into the people on the other side of Woodland Drive's front yard when we're sitting on the back deck. And secondly, because my son has 2 children and they're going to be out there playing with balls and so forth, and without a fence, they hit a ball. As land slopes downward toward Woodland Trail, the balls are going to run right into the road. And with 2 little toddler boys, we don't want them running right into the road, so we're looking to put up a privacy fence. And it would be nice if it were if it could be closer to the property line, because there are some big trees set back about the same distance as the current regulations are, so we really wouldn't be able to put a fence up. So kind of concur with what the first gentleman's comments were as well. And having read your document here, I think it's good that the board consider revising the current regulations on setbacks for fences from the property line. Thank you.
Thank you. Barry? Are you?
I'd rather hear the residents first, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure, okay. Well, now I gotta figure out around this thing. I would say that the young lady next to you, Barry, would be next.
No, I'll wait, thank you.
Do you have anything to say about the public hearing on this?
I didn't come here with the intention of making a speech or begging for anything.
You would have to, is this about the fences and the shed?
Well, that's my interest, but
Oh, then come right up to the podium.
well, I wasn't planning on making a speech of any kind.
You don't have to.
You don't have to.
I may change my mind before it's over, though.
Gotcha, all right.
We will let you do that.
Thank you.
All right, then I'm gonna come up to the gentleman to the front of you. That would you.
Oh, we're actually here for Campbellwood.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So,
Same. And then last but not least in the corner.
Okay.
All right. Wow.
My name is Paul. I live on Full Circle on the old part, on the curve.
Oh, what's the address on Close Circle?
731. I'd like to see the setback for sheds changed because I'd like to put a shed in my backyard, but I don't want to put it in the middle of my backyard because I have a pool and a deck, and I don't really want to put the shed in the middle of my backyard. My shed rather. And as it stands right now, you have to go 15 feet in from the property line, and that would put that directly in the middle of my backyard, which I really don't want to. I'd like to move it closer to the edge of my property. When I bought the house in '87, there was a previous shed there that the previous owner had put there. I had an issue several years later with a neighbor behind me. She measured her lot line to my lot line and then complained to the town that the shed was near the lot line on my property, near the lot line of her property. The town wrote me a letter stating I had to remove the shed or move it in a little bit closer to my property. It was on stilts, and I was not able to do that, so I had to end up having somebody come in and move the shed and take it away, all in one piece. So I have no shed. All my stuff is in my garage, and I'd like to put a shed back out there on my property. So I could put my gardening stuff and my riding lawnmower and so on and so forth back in the shed, to get a shed. But the lady who backed me complained, and I got a letter and I had to take care of it. And I got nothing to put anything in. I just said, use half my garage for all my stuff. And I think it would be nice to have the 5 feet addressed from the property line.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
wasn't here for about the shed, but if you want, input.
Come on up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Walt Bailey, do with 1092 Peaceful Trail, 1092 Bear Creek Circle. We just moved in from Webster. Yeah, I saw that in the paper a while back about instead of 15 could have a 5-foot setback, and I think to me that would be fantastic. The shed that I do have, I had to move on one side of the house where I had enough space in the yard, and because I couldn't put it behind the other, otherwise it'd be, I could step off my deck right onto the roof of the shed, where it'd be closer to the garage. And with that setback, that would be, something like that would be perfect. I think it would help a lot of other people too, especially right now, if I could move the shed there, I'd have to come in for a variance just to make up probably 12 inches. And, but changing the setback, I think it's been a while, it's been overdue, and I think that would be great for the community, for people, situation like his and mine. So,
Thanks, Paul.
it's good. I'll be back.
Okay. Barry, you want to bring up the rear?
My name is Barry Barone at 482 Joseph Circle, and I'm a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for the last 5 years. What we just heard from the residents is what we hear at the Zoning Board of Appeals at our green meeting. Collectively, shed and fence variances are by far the most frequently sought after variances that we see. I think Josh can attest to that. Josh's letter to the Town Times was really well done. The town's changed, and the laws and zoning codes that are in place, some are, I think one of them dated back to what, 1938? We're not the same town. I think we had a meeting early in Tom Flaherty's tenure, and I was invited to the meeting because at the time I was chairman of the board, of the zoning board. And we were talking about zoning issues and variances. Tom said, do we need to revise the zoning code? I said, absolutely not. We just need to tweak it. We need to make some adjustments. The zoning codes work quite well. It's a beautiful town. That's a testament that we have good zoning. We have beautiful neighborhoods. We have commercial corridors and so on and so forth. But when you hear all these residents say, I want to get my shed a little closer to the line, or I want to get my fence closer to the line, we hear this time and time and time again. So I think this action that you're undertaking right now is long overdue. A fence serves a few purposes. It keeps the kids in, as you heard. It keeps the pets in. It keeps strangers out of your yard. It's privacy, and it also defines lot lines. When you put a fence 10 feet off a lot line, it doesn't define the lot line, because you don't know what's going on the other side of that fence. It's just kind of an odd, I don't know exactly where that came from. I think it was a previous town board's effort to discourage 6-foot fences in the town, basically, because when you got moving in 10 feet, who wants that? So now you have these corridors of unkempt areas outside the fence that effectively makes a person's backyard usable space less. And, you know, there's a saying, good fences make good neighbors. We've seen some arguments at the zoning board where neighbors are arguing with each other over placement of the fence. If it's on the lot line, there's no argument. The sheds, I don't know what setbacks you're looking at. I don't know, 7.5 feet, or was it 5 feet? Or?
Yeah, I was revised to 5 feet.
I like 5 feet. Now, the other thing that's changed in town quite substantially, years ago, all the lots were 100 foot by 200 feet, half-acre lots. It's not the case anymore. I would dare say every development in town now, be it townhouses, apartments, but the residential lots are pretty much all cluster lots. They're usually like 70 or 80 feet wide, 150 feet deep. They're not the 100 by 200 foot lots anymore. So, and I've heard from one of these folks here, when you put the shed 15 feet off the line, your sideline, it's coming quite a ways into the backyard and it uses up some of their usable space. So demographics have changed. The yards are smaller. The fence coming in encroaches on your yard. The sheds coming in encroach on their yard. I think this action the town board is considering is well overdue. I think, I just think that, not that I'm looking to save myself work, we're going to see a lot less variances. The other thing that came up tonight was that a lot of people, when they don't get the permit that they want, they'll put it where they want. They won't get a permit. They'll put the shed too close to the line, they'll put the fence too close to the line, hoping nobody catches it. Somebody buys the house from them, they come to the zoning board of appeals looking to legalize their illegal shed and fence that they purchased unbeknownst to them. Because most people aren't, they're not up to date on these things, they don't follow that. they just assume everything's done properly. So, it's just, I think it's a great idea, and I hope the board moves forward with this sooner rather than later, because I had just a short chat with Tom, and I said, we're into fence and shed season. Every week we're going to see, this is spring, you know, people are going to be coming in, they want to put up sheds, they want to put up fences. So hopefully the town board moves forward with this. I think it's a great idea.
Thanks, Barry.
Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. And to your last point, I think it shows, positive customer service too. So if this gets changed, gets passed, residents will have the ability to just go to the town hall and get a permit. And I've taken calls from 2 town residents this week already asking when it's coming to the forefront. So I'm glad it's here. I think it's way overdue.
Well, I've heard some people reference the handout, the article that Josh did. I know we had a workshop, Josh presented this PowerPoint. It's pretty telling.
Yes.
I mean, it was well done, kind of told the history of the last 80 years. It was eye-opening. Now, the young lady back there said she was reserving judgment. Do you want to get up?
Talking to me?
All eyes are on you.
You had said that you don't have to, but I think we're done with the live speakers on this. But I don't want to shut you down if you want to get up and...
No, you're not. The only thing I have to say is I'd like to give Mr. Barone a hug.
Oh, knock yourself out. For those at home, I'd like to give Mr. Barone a hug. Now, before we close up, or close down the public hearing, we did get some emails, some written things to the website that we want to enter into the public hearing minutes, Dolly. We actually got 9 of them. All of what they wrote will be put into the record, but for expediency's sake, I'll just kind of give a Reader's Digest. Todd Clausen from 543 Hills Pond Road would like to see these changes made. Jason Croning, he is a Webster resident and has his address. He would like to see the changes made. Dave Kennedy at 490 Bay Meadow Drive, he is against these changes. And I will say this, out of fairness, since 7 people spoke in person tonight, and you got a chance to hear 7 that were positive for this, I think because Mr. Kennedy is against it, it might merit reading, so you can kind of get the other side of the story. So Dave Kennedy wrote, in regard to the location of fences within residential properties, I do not support the revisions being proposed. My concern apply mostly to taller, over 4 feet solid fences. Those are opaque or otherwise block light that are proposed to be permitted directly on a property line. Opaque fences cast shade that can be damaging to planting of shrubs, flowers, or vegetables located near the boundary of the adjacent property. A 6-foot fence north to south casts a shadow exceeding 6 feet for 25% of every day. Any fence located on a property line necessitates that periodic maintenance on the good side be performed standing on the neighbor's property, which may or may not be accessible depending on what's located there, and of course on the relationship between the people. 3, many people find fences, particularly solid fences, to be unattractive, and those choose not to install them on their property. To permit a neighbor to install a fence with 0 setback is an affront to their aesthetic preferences. In many ways, the current system of systematically reviewing requests for variances works effectively, permitting those without objection to proceed. However, there may be a reasonable compromise worth considering. Continue the current provision of permitting 4-foot fences on the lot line, differentiate between opaque and non-opaque fences over 4 feet tall. The fence is considered opaque if it obstructs the passage of light for more than 15% of the surface area occupied by its outermost dimensions. The setback on opaque fences over 4 feet should remain unchanged at 5, 10, 15, and 20 feet for 5, 6, 7, and 8-foot fences. The setback for non-opaque fences over 4 feet can be modified to 5 feet setback for 5 feet fence, 10-foot setback on small fences. If the ordinance doesn't otherwise address the topic of maintenance or repairs to the outward facing side of fences, it should. It's a very articulate point. And it's one actually, I think, Josh, that you brought up about a lot of these fences now are, you can pull the panels out and maintain them, the other side of the fence that would be on your neighbors. John Buster at 1050 Clem Road, he was for the changes. Dave Woolrob doesn't have his address. Oh, he does, 714 Cogdell Circle. He was against it, so I'm going to read this one. It's a little shorter than Dave Kennedy's, and it's there's only 2 that we got that were negative against it. I will not be able to attend the public hearing regarding changes to sheds and fence setbacks, but would like to express a couple of concerns regarding the changes. First, if I had my choice, I would outright ban 6-foot fences in all residential areas, especially in small lot developments. They are ugly, not usually well maintained, and result in a closed-in feeling. I would not want a 6-foot stockade fence, plastic or otherwise, running down both sides of my lot, especially on the lot line. How will my side of the fence be maintained, which by the way is supposed to be the good side of the fence, without the fence owner trespassing on my property? How will the fence owner even know the fence needs maintenance? I am opposed to any change in the ordinance that will put a 6-foot fence on the property line. I don't want to be, quote, closed in, unquote, by an eyesore. It would be okay with a 5-foot setback, at least the fence owner could make an attempt to maintain it. I also believe the present requirement for a 5-foot fence should be maintained out of the same concern for maintenance and an openness feeling, especially in small lot developments. As for shed setbacks, I would be okay with a 5-foot side and rear. So I'm going to stop there. He's for the shed setback, so he's a hack on that. Then we had John Fisher write in. He was for the changes. And we had Beth Wheeler from 649 Beverly Drive. She was for the changes. Ken Corpus, I don't know if he has his address here. He was for the changes. And last but not least, Mike Solway from 752 Patty Lane was for the changes. So we got 9 written, 7 for it, I guess 7.5 for it, Mr. Woolrobs was, and 1.5 against. And we had 7 speakers tonight, where all 7 were for it. So it gives a bit of a temperature of this issue. Something that I had talked about was that one of your best temperatures of the issue was in the packet that Josh presented at a workshop last month. 71 fence variance applications in 10 years. I can assure you that those 71 people are for this change. So I guess we'll see if anybody wants to call in on this. I'm only going to give it a minute or 2, and then if we don't get a call in, we will close the public hearing. And this is not something the town board is going to vote on tonight. I think it was important to get these comments, to hear the public hearing. It would be something we do in a future board meeting.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see the vote as soon as possible.
Cinco de Mayo,
As soon as possible.
and that would be May 5th, our next regular town board meeting. Geez, I wonder if we bored the watching audience, or if you guys did such a good job talking on the podium that it's been all said. I'm going to shut it down then. So, unless anybody else has anything to say, I am going to close the public hearing.
When will we get an answer to our issue? Do you have any idea?
Councilman Kale, and we were just saying that we will come back to a future board meeting and vote on a resolution to change the code, the local law, and it might be as soon as May 5th. That's our next regular town board meeting. All right? So.
Should we be coming back at that point? in case you had any
It's not a
further
public
issues?
hearing at that point.
Okay,
There wouldn't be any opportunity to get up and talk on it again, unless, as I close out this public hearing. And what time is that at? 8:09. Okay, so that public hearing went from 7:40 to 8:09. Next up,
Could I ask a question before we move on?
sure,
This question's for you, Josh. It says the local law will take effect immediately upon the appropriate filing, so May 4th or 5th meeting?
Fifth.
If this is on the agenda, if we vote in the affirmative, how soon after that is the appropriate filing constituted?
rather direct that to the town clerk.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know where it's supposed to go. And then, so people would come in the following day. Okay. But I'm feeling phone calls, people are very interested.
sure. And I always figure that is the 3rd of May is the Tuesday that is that the next zoning board meeting or is that the next planning board meeting? So is the next zoning board of appeals meeting the 10th? That is the next one.
Yes.
It'd be nice to have it tied up by then because, then it will save people coming in for the variances.